This question is asking why a mother would overshare their personal emotional life and or like sexual intimacy related stuff with a kid. This is unfortunately common and can cause a lot of trauma, and I wanted to answer this because I've read some about this, and I know some people are like me and they like to understand why things happen, even though they understand that knowing why things happen or what things contribute to people being abusive or unhealthy parents does not excuse their behavior whatsoever. But I also know that other people really don't want that information and find that information invalidating or upsetting. And so if you are somebody who doesn't want to hear reasons why people do toxic things as that might invalidate you, please skip this video. So when we're talking about a parent being overly intimate in an emotional way with their child, what that really is either enmeshment or sometimes even emotional incest. There's a lot of overlap in those concepts, but they can be somewhat different too. I have read a book on emotional incest, and it basically says that one of the biggest causes of emotional incest is when the marriage doesn't have good emotional intimacy and isn't meeting the emotional needs of both people. It says oftentimes there is an addiction at play that makes one of the spouses emotionally unavailable to the other. It does not have to be like a substance. It can be gambling. It can be like a spending problem. Different causes can come into play. But if there's a marriage and one of the people is not emotionally available to the other, then that other spouse will usually have unmet emotional needs. The healthy thing for the parent who isn't getting their emotional needs met to do is to find other adults to meet their emotional needs in healthy ways, or to find ways to meet their own needs when possible. There is nothing wrong at all with an adult needing somebody to vent to, somebody's shoulder to cry on, somebody to feel seen and supported and accepted by. These are very human needs that all people have, and that is true whether you are in a bad marriage, whether you are single, doesn't matter. And so there isn't shame in having unmet emotional needs, but for adults, it is their job to find healthy ways to get their needs met. When a parent doesn't do that, they don't go make friends, they don't get a therapist, they don't leave an unhealthy marriage to go find a healthier marriage, a lot of times what happens is they end up over-relying on and becoming enmeshed with or even emotionally incestuous with one of their children. The book also talked about how this often happens in families. They have generational trauma of this happening. So if somebody grows up emotionally incestuous with their own parent, they are more likely to repeat that pattern with their own kids. So of course, like the number one cause, the parent had an emotional need that they needed met. A lot of times that is significant loneliness or lack of support. Some things that can cause a parent who has these unmet needs to rely on their children instead of seeking healthier alternatives are a lack of understanding of how damaging this can be. So if they were emotionally incestuous with their parent, they probably heard about their parents' sex problems and marriage problems and money problems as a kid too. And so a lot of times, unfortunately, people suffer through trauma and are harmed by it, but because it was normal to them, they don't fully grasp how damaging that was, and they don't heal their own stuff fully enough, and then they end up repeating that cycle. They kind of become their mother or become their father. But also, our society, in my opinion, is pretty bad at like spreading knowledge about child development and healthy parenting. A lot of people genuinely don't understand that the inherent power imbalance that happens between parents and their children is huge, and that because of that, you cannot have a relationship with your child that is like a friend. You certainly can't have one that is like a spouse. But a lot of people really don't understand that. They really don't understand that crying on your child's shoulder is extremely suffocating for that child. That is an extremely heavy weight for a child to carry. They just genuinely don't understand that this relationship is supposed to be very distinct from friend relationships or marriage relationships. And that's usually because they haven't learned that about child psychology. They haven't learned very much about attachment. And kids are not resilient. I hate that phrase, but kids are very adaptable and very resourceful. They will kind of morph themselves to be able to function in really toxic situations because they don't have a choice. But because of that, children might be treated as mom's little therapist or dad's little therapist, and they're not like acting depressed as a 10-year-old. They still get up and play. They still smile and laugh and say, I love you, mom. And so when these kids are kids, parents aren't really fully understanding the damage that they're doing. They take their kids still playing and, doing happy kid things as evidence that they're fine. Another aspect of this, what like the psychology world refers to as poor mentalization or poor theory of mind, which basically is understanding that other people have different perspectives, they have different needs, they have different emotions, different beliefs. Some people can like struggle with this really just in general, but I think some people understand that about other adults, but due to kind of like ageism, will not fully see their children as truly independent people with independent needs and will therefore not realize the damage. It's almost like they really see their child as an extension of them. And so it's kind of like if my child is my leg, they're part of me, then why would I need to not need to hide from my leg or protect my leg from the fact that I'm not getting enough sex? Or that my husband isn't making me feel appreciated, or whatever the marriage issue is that they're sharing with their child. If they really see that child as an extension of them, it's not going to occur to them that there still needs to be some boundaries there and some privacy there, and that can cause the enmeshment. A lot of times these parents did not get their own needs met well at all in childhood, so they have their own developmental childhood trauma that was not resolved, and so now they have a chance to feel seen and heard and to be cuddled and these things that maybe they've never experienced before. And so they are still trying to meet this lifelong unmet need, and now they have a child who doesn't really have the power to say no, and so in their like desperation they take advantage of their child. Impulse control can be a factor. They have a need, they want to get it met, they do it impulsively. I think a lot of times parents like this confuse their oversharing and kind of trauma dumping on their kids with actual closeness. I think some of these parents, maybe most of these parents even, think that they are best buddies with their kid. Someone left a comment on the same post saying that their dad would kind of shit talk their mom to them all the time as a kid. And that kind of triangulation, I think, usually suggests that that parent thinks that they are really close to that kid, and so they can like gossip with that kid as if it was their friend. And it's kind of like if the parent is getting their need met through the kid, they feel close to the kid and they don't look at the big picture that is, first of all, this is harming your kid, and second of all, you aren't meeting your kid's emotional needs. In fact, you are harming your kid's emotions. And last but not least, of course, just kind of like selfishness or being self-centered can play into this. Like, this is what I need, and they don't necessarily care what their kid needs or how it's going to impact their kid. So those are the factors that I think often contribute to this. If you had a parent like this or still have a parent like this, feel free to leave in the comments what you think contribute to them being this way.